Hello, Sacred Studios here, and 2020 has been a wild ride for all of us, but I decided to do something new. This year, I'm going to make a top 10 list of my best action figures, in my opinion, that I've made in 2020. Now, this is just for 2020, unfortunately, this won't include my older figures. But yeah, without further ado, let's go. Number 10, we have tailsdoll. Now, tailsdoll originally was a commission from Dark Lord Pikachu, but I've made multiple tailsdolls since then. But even then, I think this is a really solid figure that I made. I'm really proud of how he turned out. He looks really good. And I think the main thing that I got right was just his likeness, because I just imported his model directly from Sonic Art. And that's tailsdoll. Alright, number 9, we have John Taffer, or I'm sorry, I mean Giovanni from the Pokemon series, the mob boss, the main antagonist of my Smash series. This action figure, technically, I made in 2019, but as you guys can see here, he obviously does not look the same as he used to anymore. I completely redid his face, I gave him multiple faces, and I 3D printed them, and it turned out way better than this mess that I originally made. In my defense, original Giovanni was the second action figure I've ever made before, but still, he looked really bad. Alright, number 8, we have another Pokemon trainer. We have Walle from the Gen 3 Pokemon games. I grew up with Gen 3, and all my friends for some reason really hate Walle. I don't know why. But back to the figure itself, I used Tomy Ash Ketchum as a base. For some reason, the Tomy Ash Ketchum, specifically the one I used, was kind of short, so it worked really good for Walle. Alright, number 7, we have Methodist. This is another commission from It's Sean. Methodist was a really awesome figure. I'm glad that I was able to make one for It's Sean. I'm currently making another Methodist using the same sort of method, 3D printing the head. I'm really glad that I made this for It's Sean, and actually recently he commissioned Tico for me as well, so props to him. Please check out his series, tell him Sacred sent you. Alright, number 6, we have my new K. Rool. Alright, unfortunately I was not able to keep this guy because he was a commission. My old K. Rool, this thing is the one that I'm stuck with until I make a new one. But that new K. Rool I made, honestly, in my opinion, turned out way better than I expected, and I was really salty I wasn't able to keep him. But that's the life of an action figure customizer, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Okay, number 5, we have the first Banjo-Kazooie action figure. We have Gruntilda. Props to my mom for voicing this character. I used Gru from the Minions movie that got delayed as a base. I was never really a big fan of the Minions. I thought Gru was cool, but anyways, his likeness was really close to Grunty for some reason. He even had the scarf, so it honestly wasn't that hard making this figure. I just had to make his outfit look more like a dress by using like rubber sheets, and bam, we got Grunty. So it was a really simple figure, and I'm really glad I made her. Number 4, we have possibly one of my most popular commissions. We have Ridley. So this specific Ridley is a special one because it's the first one I made, and I didn't sell him off, and I plan on keeping him, even though technically he would be the worst Ridley I've ever made because I did a lot of techniques that honestly didn't turn out very good, specifically with the wings, and with my new Ridleys I did it a lot better, but you know, hindsight's 2020. Alright, so number 3, we're reaching the top 3 here. These are the big dogs. We have Cynthia, another Pokemon trainer, and I believe the last Pokemon trainer on this list. Really, this is a really awesome figure that I made, and I wish she was in episode 5, but I didn't finish her in time. But that's okay. All in all, I think she turned out really good. I used a DC Superhero Girls action figure as a base. I ordered way too many of them, by the way, so I'm planning on just taking them apart for spare parts. But honestly, I'm really happy how she turned out. Just one bad thing I could say definitely is her face. I used way too much paint, and she's looking kind of crusty. But, you know, besides that, I think she turned out really good. Alright, number 2, we have Mumbo Jumbo from Banjo-Kazooie. Unfortunately, Banjo-Kazooie themselves can't make the list because technically I finished them in 2019. But either way, they wouldn't have made the list anyways because I think I made them not very well. But Mumbo Jumbo turned out really well, which is odd because I honestly was one of the fastest action figures I ever made. Like, it only took me like 2 weeks to finish him, and that's just because he's really simple, like once you get all the parts down. His head was 3D printed, but besides that, I made everything by scratch. Alright, now before we reach number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Captain Falcon, really awesome figure, but the base I used honestly wasn't the best for Falcon. I used Shazam as a base, and he still looks like Shazam. He just looks like Shazam with a helmet on. Alright, next up we have King DDD. This guy would have made the list if I made him in 2020. I didn't, but King DDD threatened me, and I was like, look, let's put you in the honorable mentions. And he was like, okay, so he chilled out. But I made your Gordo in 2020, so I mean that counts. And lastly, we have 2D from Banjo-Kazooie. Honestly, out of all my 3D printed customs, 2D was probably the worst. I mean, the print turned out fine. It's just I didn't paint her that well, especially her eyes. Okay, so number 1, my best action figure that I ever made in 2020 is Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. Ironically, this figure had nothing to do with the Sephiroth reveal. I just happened to be working on him at the same time. Like right before Sephiroth got revealed, I just happened to download Final Fantasy VII on my Switch, and I was like, oh, I really like this. Let me make a Cloud. And yeah, he turned out really awesome. I used a MCC Toys action figure base as a base. The one and only action figure to this date in which I actually used an action figure base and not just like a pre-established action figure as a base. I think he turned out really good. His head and his Buster Sword are 3D printed, as well as his shoulder pad, but the rest is by hand. And I think he turned out really solid, and I'm super glad I made him. I might go back and give him some extra facial expressions, but besides that, this is definitely the best action figure ever made in 2020. Okay. So, that was my list of my top 10 action figures of 2020. Regarding episode 6, I'm making good progress. I'm going to have to stream not as often as I have been just because of some family stuff. But, honestly, please stay in tune. You're going to have to wait a few more months for it to come out. I really don't want to rush the final product. And I really want to take my time with this because I want it to be way better than episode 5. But, with all that, Sacred out.